When pain didn't break you, it switched something on. The moment that changed, you didn't come with tears or drama. It came when something inside you went dead quiet, and you realized you couldn't go back. Not peace, not relief. Silence, the kind that scrapes the noise out of your chest and leaves you face to face with yourself. No distractions, no excuses, just truth sitting there, heavy. That was the moment pain finally reached you. Not to destroy you, to wake you up. Before that, you were chasing love without knowing it. You confused attention for meaning. You called attachment devotion. You called fear care. You gave more than was asked, explained more than was needed, waited longer than you should have. You believed that if you loved hard enough, you'd be chosen. That effort would save you. Pain didn't arrive loud. It didn't need to. It arrived precise. You saw it all at once. Love you have to beg for isn't love. It's leverage. The old version of you wasn't deep. He was desperate. He didn't choose. He hoped, and hope made him small. You weren't clinging because you cared. You were clinging because you were afraid to stand alone. And here's the truth most men miss. You didn't become cold. You became awake. Pain didn't take your heart. It gave you your spine back. It burned the need out of you and replaced it with clarity, the kind that can't be undone. Something realigned inside you that night. You didn't shut down. You stood up. When love became survival, not choice, after that silence settled in, you couldn't look at your past the same way anymore. Not with shame, not with anger, just with a kind of steady honesty that doesn't flinch. You started to see that before the pain, you weren't weak, but you were hollow in places you didn't want to name. You were always reaching, always leaning forward, always trying to secure something before it slipped away. You gave more than was asked, filled gaps no one told you to fill, explained yourself before anyone questioned you. At the time, you called it love. Now you can say it cleanly. It was fear dressed up as devotion. You were afraid of losing her, sure, but deeper than that, you were afraid of what it meant if she left. Afraid that without someone choosing you, there wouldn't be much left holding you up. So you overgave, not because your heart was overflowing, but because your chest was tight. Every act of care carried a quiet hope attached to it. Stay. See me. Don't walk away, walk. You never said those words, but your actions said them louder than anything else could. Love slowly stopped being something you shared and turned into something you needed just to feel steady. Her moods began running your nervous system. Her tone decided whether your day felt solid or shaky. A warm message lifted you up. A delayed reply sent you spiraling. You didn't wake up asking what you wanted anymore. You woke up scanning for signals, reading between lines, trying to predict what version of her you were going to get. Approval became oxygen. Distance felt like suffocation. And the dangerous part is how normal it all felt. You told yourself this was what caring looked like. But caring doesn't erase you. What you were really doing was surviving. And survival makes a man abandon himself quietly. You apologized when you weren't wrong. You explained emotions that didn't need explaining. You tolerated confusion because clarity felt like something only other men were allowed to ask for. Your sense of worth lived inside her reactions. When she leaned in, you felt solid. When she pulled back, the ground dropped out. You confused intensity with intimacy, closeness with connection. Silence scared you because in silence, there was nothing outside you confirming that you mattered. So you filled it. You talked too much. You reassured too often. You chased certainty from someone who never offered it freely. Here's the part that hurts, brother. You weren't stupid. You were trained. Trained to believe being chosen was proof of value. Trained to earn affection instead of expecting alignment. So you adjusted yourself. You negotiated attraction like it could be saved with enough effort. You thought patience would be rewarded. You thought loyalty guaranteed safety. What you couldn't see then was simple and brutal. The more you needed love, the less power it had. And that's how you lost yourself without even realizing it. When the illusion finally cracked, it didn't fall apart in one loud moment. There was no explosion, no clear ending you could point to and say, that was it. It cracked slowly, quietly, in ways that were easy to ignore at first. A look that stayed somewhere else a little too long. A tone that lost its warmth. A distance you could feel but couldn't name. Nothing dramatic enough to confront. Nothing obvious enough to leave. Just enough to keep you uneasy. So you did what you had always done. You gave more. You tried harder. You explained yourself better. You told yourself that effort had always worked before, so it would work again. You doubled down on loyalty, on patience, on consistency. But this time, something was different. The things that once brought reassurance now landed flat. The words that used to calm her started to irritate her. The presence you offered no longer pulled her closer. And for the first time, you felt it in your body before you understood it in your head. Love wasn't protecting you anymore. That's what hurt the most. Not the distance itself, but the realization that your commitment wasn't the shield you believed it was. You had treated loyalty like leverage, like something that guaranteed safety if you held it long enough. You believed consistency would secure your place, but the truth came in cold and clean. Love you have to maintain through fear is never stable. It's a contract that can be broken without warning. Pain didn't show up as betrayal or disrespect. It didn't need a name. It showed up as awareness. The moment you realized you were still giving, still trying, still showing up, and the ground beneath you wasn't responding anymore. You were invested, but she was comfortable. You were loyal, but she was distant. And comfort doesn't respect what it never has to earn. Attention doesn't protect what it can easily replace. That's when the illusion finally cracked all the way through. You saw that your devotion had become predictable, and predictability had turned you into background noise. Not because you lacked value, but because you gave it away without conditions. Pain didn't punish you. It exposed the structure you were standing on. It showed you that sacrifice rooted in fear doesn't create closeness. It creates complacency. And something inside you shifted. Not anger, not bitterness, clarity. You stopped romanticizing endurance. You stopped telling yourself that patience was proof of depth. You saw that the more you tried to secure the bond, the more it slipped through your hands. And the truth you couldn't avoid anymore was this: you had been loyal to someone who never had to earn it. That wasn't heartbreak. That was initiation. Pain didn't destroy you. It showed you the cost of needing love to feel whole, and it made sure you would never forget it. When everything went quiet inside you, after the illusion broke, something strange happened. Not relief. Not peace. Quiet. A deep, unfamiliar stillness inside you that felt wrong at first, like something had shut down that shouldn't have. Your emotions stopped reaching outward. The constant checking, the subtle anxiety, the need to be mirrored. It all went offline. And your first thought wasn't, "I'm healing." It was, "Something's wrong with me." You wondered if the pain had hollowed you out, if this calm was damage instead of progress. But it wasn't emptiness. It was exhaustion finally letting go. Your nervous system had been running on high alert for years, always scanning, always bracing, always trying to stay ahead of loss. When the truth landed, it didn't just hit your mind, it hit your body. And your body did the only thing it could do to survive. It powered down. The urgency disappeared. The emotional static faded. What remained wasn't bitterness, it was clarity. Cold at first, unforgiving, but steady. This is where most men misunderstand what happens next. They think detachment means hatred. They think numbness means they've lost the ability to love. They think silence means loneliness. But what actually died wasn't love. It was need. The reflex to explain yourself. The instinct to chase distance. The fear that turned every pause into a threat. When those circuits shut off, you didn't become heartless. You became regulated. You started feeling less. But what you felt was real. Cleaner. Your emotions weren't gone. They were filtered. You no longer burned energy on mixed signals or imagined meanings. You stopped rehearsing conversations that would never happen. You stopped carrying the weight of someone else's uncertainty. And in that silence, something unexpected showed up. You felt grounded, not numb, not alone. Grounded. Silence stopped feeling like danger because you weren't using noise to escape yourself anymore. Calm stopped feeling empty because it wasn't waiting to be filled. You could sit with yourself without reaching for reassurance. You could feel space without panicking. And that's when you realized this wasn't shutdown. It was stabilization. This was the quiet collapse of an old identity. The man who needed to be chosen faded out. The man who outsourced his worth stopped running the system. You stopped asking where you stood. You stopped seeking permission to be solid. Your value no longer rose and fell with someone else's attention. And in that absence, a new center formed. One that didn't move when interest faded. One that didn't spike when it returned. You didn't harden. You stabilized. And once a man stabilizes, he can never fully return to emotional chaos without feeling the lie in his bones. The death of neediness and the return of control. After things went quiet inside you, the real change started showing up in how you moved through the world. It wasn't loud. You didn't announce it. But something fundamental had shifted. You stopped negotiating attraction. You stopped over-functioning emotionally. You stopped trying to secure outcomes before they even had a chance to unfold. Not because you were angry, and not because you were trying to prove anything, but because you were finished abandoning yourself. Neediness didn't fade slowly. It dropped off like a switch being flipped. The urge to explain yourself disappeared. The reflex to chase distance shut down. You no longer felt compelled to smooth over tension or rush to restore connection. If energy was there, you met it. If it wasn't, you didn't pursue the echo. And for the first time, that didn't feel like loss. It felt like control, not over anyone else, but over yourself. You started choosing your time, your pace, your standards. Not as ideas, but as behavior. You didn't reach where effort wasn't mutual. You didn't keep investing where interest stalled. You didn't perform consistency hoping it would turn into desire. You let things reveal themselves without interference. That alone changed the entire dynamic. You weren't withdrawing to punish. You were staying still to stay intact. This is where most men think something has gone wrong. They think this is where they've given up on love. But that's not what this is. What died wasn't your capacity to care. It was the belief that care should cost you your center. You no longer needed love to stabilize your nervous system. You no longer used connection as life support. And once that dependence ended, your presence changed. You became self-contained. You could sit in stillness without reaching for rescue. You could feel attraction without chasing it. You could enjoy connection without clinging to it. Loss stopped feeling like a threat to your identity, because your identity no longer lived in someone else's hands. Walking away didn't feel like failure. It felt like alignment. And here's the part that seals it, brother. Once a man experiences this kind of control, quiet, internal, unshakable, he can't go back. Begging feels foreign. Overgiving feels wrong. Explaining yourself feels unnecessary. Not because you're above anyone, but because you finally stand somewhere solid. This is the death of neediness, and it doesn't make you colder. It makes you free. When attraction stopped needing your effort, you didn't decide to change how attraction worked. You just stopped interfering with it. Once the neediness was gone, your energy stopped reaching forward, stopped asking questions, stopped trying to secure anything. And that's when things shifted in ways you didn't plan. Not because you were trying to be distant, not because you were playing a role, but because something inside you was finally complete. You no longer chased reassurance because your body wasn't outsourcing safety anymore. The old reflex to check, to confirm, to lock things down had died with the need that fed it. You didn't ask where you stood, you knew. Not because someone explained it to you, but because your internal state stopped moving with external signals. If interest was present, you met it. If it wasn't, you stayed where you were. Texts, tones, pauses, none of it carried the weight it used to. You also stopped fearing abandonment, because fear requires dependency, and dependency no longer lived in you. Loss didn't feel like a threat to your identity anymore. Walking away didn't feel like failure. It felt like alignment. You understood something the old version of you never could. Anything that requires you to shrink to keep is already gone. So you stopped bracing for exits. You stopped preemptively pleasing. Not because you didn't care, but because you trusted yourself to survive without attachment. And that's when attraction started responding differently. Women felt the change immediately, even if they couldn't name it. Not because you said the right things, or acted more confident, or tried to appear detached. They felt it because something essential was no longer leaking out of you. Need was gone. And without need, there was nothing to withhold, nothing to test, nothing to control. Your attention became heavier because it wasn't automatic. When you gave it, it meant something. When you didn't, it wasn't punishment. It was calibration. You weren't worshiping. You were choosing, and being chosen feels very different than being needed. It creates curiosity instead of comfort, presence instead of predictability. This wasn't manipulation. It wasn't strategy. You didn't learn tactics. You removed distortion. Before, every interaction carried urgency. Every silence felt loaded. Now there was no push behind your words, no hunger beneath your calm. And that absence of hunger created gravity. You weren't chasing connection anymore, and that's exactly why connection started leaning toward you. The point of no return. There comes a moment after the shift where you realize something quietly unsettling. You're not just different. You're incompatible with who you used to be. The old patterns don't tempt you anymore. They repel you. The thought of explaining yourself into exhaustion, waiting on replies like they're verdicts, or shrinking just to keep someone close doesn't feel romantic now. It feels wrong in your body. Not morally, viscerally. Like touching something you know will make you sick. You start seeing the patterns everywhere. How attention is rationed. How distance is used as leverage. How affection fades the moment it no longer has to be earned. You notice men convincing themselves to stay where energy isn't mutual, calling endurance depth, calling patience love. And the hardest part is recognizing your old self in them. That recognition closes the door behind you, because once you see it clearly, going back would mean betraying yourself. You can't beg again without feeling the fracture immediately. You can't chase without hearing the echo of your own weakness. Even imagining it triggers resistance. Your nervous system won't cooperate anymore. It remembers the cost. It remembers how much of yourself you had to give up just to stay connected, and it refuses to pay that price again. This is why awakening isolates you, not emotionally, but structurally. You stop bonding through need, and that alone disqualifies most dynamics. You don't get high off intensity anymore. You don't confuse chaos with chemistry. You don't feel flattered by attention that comes with conditions attached. You stop fearing the loss of love because you understand something deeper now. Losing yourself hurts more, and once you've felt that, you don't volunteer for it again. You stop fighting for connection that requires self-abandonment. You stop romanticizing sacrifice when it comes from fear. You don't stay where respect has to be negotiated, not because you're closed off, but because you're awake. You know what it costs to go backward, and the cost is too high. This is the point of no return. You're no longer compatible with conditional love. You can't perform for affection. You can't live in emotional debt. And that means fewer connections, but cleaner ones. Quieter dynamics, but real ones. Less noise, but more truth. You didn't harden. You outgrew. And once that happens, the old version of you isn't something you miss. It's something you protect yourself from becoming again. Standing still without collapsing. At the end of all this, you don't arrive at some dramatic victory. There's no rush of emotion, no sense of triumph. You arrive somewhere quieter than that. Colder, more centered. Love is no longer the thing holding you upright or proving that you matter. It's no longer a requirement for your stability. And that doesn't make you closed off. It makes you honest. When love shows up now, it's a choice, not a necessity. And that changes everything. Connection becomes optional, not rare, not feared. Optional. You don't step into it to fill a gap or calm an ache. You step into it because there's alignment, curiosity, and mutual presence. You stay because it's clean, not because you're afraid of what happens if it ends. Walking away doesn't feel like loss anymore. It feels like coherence, like staying true to yourself instead of betraying yourself slowly. Desire changes too. You stop asking for it, waiting for it, or earning it through endurance. It becomes mutual, or it doesn't exist at all. There's no convincing, no performing, no strategy. You recognize interest by how it moves toward you without pressure. You recognize disinterest by how it stalls, and you don't fight it. You don't take it personally. You don't turn it into a challenge. You let it be information and move accordingly. That alone separates you from the man you used to be. You don't chase anymore because nothing inside you is running. You don't convince because you no longer need validation to confirm your worth. You don't tolerate confusion because clarity isn't something you beg for. It's something you require for access. This isn't dominance. It's self-respect in its quietest form. There's no hype here, no declaration of victory. What changes is subtle and permanent. Your reaction's slow. Your attention sharpens. You become selective without being rigid, open without being porous, calm without being numb. Presence replaces performance. People feel this, not because you announce it, but because you no longer leak urgency. Your energy stops asking questions. It simply stands. And from that place, whatever comes toward you is no longer a test of your worth. It's just a choice you're finally free to make. This isn't an ending. It's a position you don't abandon again.